So we started the festival, it wasn't called a festival at first. It was just a production of Night of the Iguana by Tennessee Williams, plus a singer-songwriters concert, which Stash was in. He won't tell you that, but he was in it. And we know it unofficially as Festival Number 0. And we started it, or at least my version of when we started it, was in the spring of 2010, when I said, why don't we put the show on right here in Norwich somewhere, somehow? Because the Stash had wanted to do a lot of things. I think I'm right in saying there's a number of possible plays to do in London, never got round to doing them, or in one case tried to do it disastrously, wanted another shot at it. So I had come into some money, and rather than just let it sit there, I thought, why don't we put it to some use? And why don't I be in it? Because nobody can keep me out of it if we do it, you see. So April 2010, as I remember it, we decided to put on the production of Night of the Iguana. And then the following year, 2011, he said, why don't we stick a couple of knobs on and call it a festival? So, okay, no harm in that. So since 2011, it's been a festival. That means it's nine numbered festivals plus festival number 0 makes 10. Well, the first production was I guess it will sound cornball, but it was like coming home, because I hadn't actually been in a production of any sort whatever for upwards of 20 years. But once, as people who do acting know, once you're bitten by the bug, it never really goes away. You can go away from it, but it won't go away from you. So when we started rehearsals, which would have been September of 2010, it did actually feel as if it may be 6 months since I was in my last rehearsal room, but it was actually upwards of 18 years. So it felt very, very easy. Acting is actually the only thing I've ever really wanted to do. Everything else always looked boring or just undoable. But when I discovered acting, I discovered something I could actually do and genuinely enjoy doing. I don't know how this sounds, but it's as if I take the progress of the festival for granted almost. It happens every year. It's like Christmas. It comes around every year. So we do it like Christmas. How can you not do Christmas? So, mercifully, I don't have to do most of the hard work. I have indispensable persons who do that for me, one of whom will be interviewed very soon. And so I do what I need to do, because there's a lot of decisions that have to be made and checks that have to be signed and people met and so on. And you meet all sorts of people. When I look at it, you meet all sorts of people I never would have thought I'd meet. Melvin Bragg. I've heard of him, but who would have thought a mere 10 years ago that we'd be rewriting his play for him? But he was very amenable, so it was easy. We had a mutual acquaintance who was in a perfectly dreadful play in a basement in Camden Town, and we met there. This would be 25 years ago at least. And so we stayed in touch, and over the years it eventually occurred to me I actually adopted myself into his family. And they allowed me in too, so we became, by fits and starts, became very close over the years. And well, in the end, at the end of 10 years ago, he had wanted to do these various productions for a long time, and I finally had the means, and it finally occurred to me that if I just splashed out a bit of money, we could actually do that, do some of these, and just see how it went. So we did, and he suggested we do it in the Hostry building, which is just opening at that time, and I said, well, you can't do that. So we went and saw it, and I said, oh, yes, we can do this. So what usually happens is he makes a suggestion and I say yes. That's how it usually goes. And occasionally I say no. And if I say yes, then we just work out how to do it and how to afford it and proceed. Ask for people in, because he, as you will have noticed, you will have been stashed in the past, or else you wouldn't be here. He has this huge ability to schmooze almost anybody into doing almost anything, so they think it's their decision. That sort of thing. Well, it is their decision, but he facilitates other people's decisions remarkably well. I've never really seen anything like it, and there can't be many people like that, like him, but that's what happens. So if we didn't do that, I don't know how we do the festival. It would have to be much smaller. Again, I don't know how we'd do it, because there's so many people in it that we can't pay, or we can pay about that much. So we rely on the kindness of strangers. Not kindness, but the willing cooperation of people who start off often as strangers and become close associates or friends, as well as people who are friends already. And well, we kind of let in anybody. Anybody who's amenable will allow in. And so that's how it goes. It's all, can't say it's unplanned, because it's very planned, but it's not hit and miss either. But it's not, I don't know how to say this, it's not rigidly planned long in advance. It's planned about a year in advance, plus or minus. It has to be, because it's actually quite long now. It started off as 2 nights, and then has grown to at least 2 weeks. And who knows what it'll be in the end, whenever that will be. Yeah, a very good point is that we have no bureaucracy. He and I and Rebecca are the bureaucracy. So we just meet or text each other and say, does this sound like a good idea? And no, or yes, and say, okay, what do we do about it? So decisions can be made just kind of literally like that. It takes, so there's no endless calling of meetings and meetings about the meetings and so on. It's just, we decide yes or no, and then if yes, figure out how to proceed. So it does cuts down the difficulty, eliminates red tape almost altogether. You have to present accounts at the end of the year, but that's pretty much the only red tape. Well, with our central productions, because to my mind, it's always the central thing, because I'm always in it, and it takes up so much of our time. The main house play, as we call it, is usually, it turns out to be a play that Stash has wanted to do, either because he's had a go at it before and wants to do it properly this time, or it's a play that somebody else's that he's seen that wasn't done well, and we figure we can do better, which I think we actually can, and I do not think that is mere boasting. Yeah, so it's a play that we, whether it's well known or not, I think a play that and most of them aren't well known, particularly. Night of the Iguana is not one of Tennessee Williams' better known plays, or Melvin Bragg is not known as a playwright. He only wrote one, and we did it better than Chichester, which I think is not idle boasting, although I didn't see it. Stash saw it and thought it could be better done. So what we do with the plays is we go by the text. We don't go by reputation or by reviews, because they're so often so misleading. Read what's actually there, which principally means what the characters are like. Do you care about the characters? Are they plausible? Are they likable? Or can you identify with them, whether they're likable or not? And if they are plausible and preferably likable, but if not likable, at least something you can identify with, and and the play is well handled, then we want to do it. For instance, the one we're doing now, or we'll be doing in October, is by Peter Ustinov, who wrote quite a few plays. And this one is called Beethoven's 10th, which involves Beethoven, but isn't principally about Beethoven. But to know what that means, you'll have to come and see it. Anyway, Stash saw it first at Chichester, and he liked what he must have seen something in the play then, because the production was not very good. It was what's known as a star vehicle, which is you pay too much attention to the star, who's in this case playing Peter Ustinov playing Beethoven, and not enough to all the other characters. So what we go for is what's known as an ensemble acting, which is everybody is emphasized in the cast, all of them, from the bit players with one line or no line up to the ones who have to memorize half the play, and everybody in between. Because if you don't do that, it does show. And you get a lopsided emphasis on one or two of the main characters, and all the others are kind of left to their own devices. And some of them might do a good job of it, and some of them aren't. So it's like the stars are over-directed and everybody else is under-directed, if you see what I mean. So the thing is to direct everybody. And Stash is usually the director, by the way, in case you didn't know that. So you get everybody playing together. It becomes a real team effort rather than a couple of stars and the also-rans. And I think that's the best way to do any play. It can be done with stars sometimes, if the star's ego is not too big, and if the director isn't afraid of the star, or is not sycophantic toward the star, then it can be done. Ensemble with stars and everybody. Since we have no stars, that does make it rather easier. But we also have normally people who have got quite a lot or a great deal of acting experience, plus people who've got hardly any, or even none. We have been known to bring in complete amateurs, that's a condescending way to put it, but people who have actually not done any acting, and we can incorporate them. Not in big parts maybe, but other people who've done a little, but we've given them maybe say a middling sized part. Other people who haven't acted in ages, and give them sometimes a big part. Coming back to acting, which is what I did. My whole point of starting the damn thing was to come back to acting. There's been quite a few people we've done that for, and I think probably none of them have regretted it, because the results are usually so good. We very seldom use the words amateur or professional, because they very often have no real meaning. A good amateur production is good. It doesn't have to apologize for being done by people who aren't professionals, and you can see professional productions quite easily that are pretty terrible. I'm not saying all of them are. I'm just saying you get with both amateur and professional acting, you get a whole huge spread of quality from dire to really good. And it doesn't depend on money. You can go to see productions that have had a great shed load of money thrown at them, and they just don't work. And we can do ours, which are on a relative shoestring, relative shoestring, which can look very good and be very good, because we either pick people who we know are good because we've seen them act, or people we think have promise. And the usual result comes up to our expectations, because everyone's taken seriously and everyone is directed, meaning paid attention to in rehearsals, given rehearsal time. We started the festival, I guess, just to have something to do, I suppose. And it's gone on for quite a while now. So, and I've lived here that whole time. Most of the time I've lived in Norwich has been during the festival. Practically all of it, really, almost all of it. So I'm now, I would never claim to be a native of Norwich, obviously, but I do identify with it now, which for me is a big deal. I don't identify with places easily. The only places I identify with would be places I've lived and known people. which if you must know would mean Toronto, Canada. Yes, that's where the accent comes from. London, and it's London, England. There's a London in Ontario, but we won't go into that. And Norwich. So I'm now not a native, but an accredited resident of Norwich, which I actually identify with now because it's a very nice place, very agreeable, a lot easier to get along in than London, even Toronto too, which is kind of a sprawling monster too. And I might mention, I haven't mentioned James Coleman. Yes, that's Coleman's Mustard. He who founded Paint Out Norwich, which is actually one of the pillars of the festival. I never really see it because it always takes place when I'm at the climax of rehearsing. So I scarcely get to see the climax of Paint Out Norwich, which is visual art. All sorts of people come in, and in the course of a couple of days, they paint something that they see in Norwich, hence Paint Out Norwich. They do this outside, hence Paint Out Norwich. And so again, that's all sorts of people being incorporated. And James Coleman gets to do something that he's wanted to do since I don't know when. And so we talked about it one evening, and off it went. And still going. Rebecca also, who is Total Ensemble. She's very well qualified. It's a very specialized thing to do. This all abilities theater. It's very difficult. It's very demanding. You've got to do it properly or don't do it at all. And she trained with the best, which was Chicken Shed, which is its real name, which has always surprised me, but there it is. And they've been around since the beginning of time, 1971 or something. So she trained with the best. She's completely dedicated. She knows how to do it properly and runs a tight ship. You've got to know how to do it, and you've got to run a tight ship, or else you won't get the results. And she gets the results. When I first heard about Chicken Shed, this would be probably 10 years ago or more, it didn't sound plausible to me. I didn't think they could do it. All these people, some of them able-bodied, some of them utterly unable-bodied, to the point where surely they can't actually pull off a proper dramatic production with a spread of cast like that. But then I saw it, and I thought, yeah, well, good heavens, you can do it. You just got to do it right. And that's, I guess, Chicken Shed taught itself that, and Chicken Shed taught Rebecca Chapman how to do it. And she picked it up and ran with it. Yes, and now she's showing other people how to do it. It takes infinite patience as well as great dedication and diligence and competence. Well, one of our best years for doing unexpected things was 2012, which was only the second numbered festival, third if you include number 0. I like numbers, by the way, that's why I'm saying this. And 2012 involved not only writing a sequel to Hamlet, which you can call us pretentious if you like. I don't mind that too much. But as you may, if you've seen Hamlet, you know that everyone at the end ends up dead. So writing a sequel is not easy, but we did one anyway. It takes place in a sort of semi-Buddhist limbo afterlife, if you must know. And also, on a more mundane, but still, well, this worldly level, shall we say, Peter Beck, who was one of the original founders of the whole festival, he had an idea. It would be a good idea to celebrate just the arts in Norfolk, because Norfolk and everywhere seems to have arts awards ceremonies for everything. My favorite is the British Potato Council Awards for I don't know, the best potato, I don't know. But he was looking in the paper one day and he saw that there was awards for everything else, so why not have awards for the arts in Norfolk? So we set up, we declared ourselves competent to awards to people involved in the arts in Norfolk, which has taken a lot of learning. Talk about learning curves. Oh my goodness, what you have to go through to find out how to do something like this. And how did they decide the Oscars? I don't know. We had to decide how to decide. And what do you count as the arts? Because the spread of what you could count as arts is like that. So we eventually just started to include that, and the awards got bigger and we think more genuinely inclusive and more transparent in the deciding. And that's gone by stages, which Stash could probably tell you about more coherently than I could, so I won't go through that. But now the Arts Awards is it's quite big, and it's well reported in the EDP and on the radio and so on. It includes pretty much every category from the arts that you can think of, and a huge spread of different sorts of people, visual artists and performance artists and organizations of every sort, big and small, from individuals who have no organization up to the Norfolk and Norwich Festival or the Theatre Royal, and everything in between. So that's it's kind of like our schedule. We've got individuals being interviewed at one end, and the main house play or Paint Out Norwich at the other. So from the little to the large and everything in between, which is the way we like it. I tend to take it for granted, but again, this reminds me, value your own achievement. It really does happen. None of this is boasting. It kind of surprises me to say that, but it's true. And so it is real philanthropy, and it is what people mean by enabling, encouraging and enabling. Quite a big deal, really.